to Final Resonance TV and episode number 13 of Musical Journeys. Today, my guest is my good buddy from Huntsville, Alabama for like a decade or more.
It's been longer than that,
right?
Probably, yeah.
Mike Myerson, y'all, from... I first saw you in the Land.
Right.
Way back. What was that? What was the year?
That would have probably been like 98.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then I of course, knew later that you were in Heartland. When was the change from the two?
You almost need a pamphlet.
Really?
I'm gonna make one. So
go through that?
Yeah, we did Heartland from probably 94 to 97, and then we kind of picked up separate projects and started the Land about fall of 97.
Okay.
And did that through. I don't know.
I remember seeing you guys probably 2006.
Right. We were doing Jason Albert Band then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when I saw you the first time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
In fact, it was one of the first shows I saw here in town because I had moved here. And I went out to see a few shows. One was a station. I saw Black Eyed Susan. And then I saw you guys too. It was a killer show. And I was like, man, I got to get back out and start playing. So I owe that to you somewhat, man.
I'm sorry.
you and Albert, who's going to be on the show at some point too.
Yeah,
as well,
right.
I think. So let's kind of go back in your history to the beginning of your musical journey, all the way back to when you first started hearing music. What was it? What got you inspired to do music? All the way back to the very beginning.
So my mother's family are all musicians.
Okay.
The guys, bluegrass.
Okay.
Primarily, a lot of them still got bluegrass bands.
Really? Okay.
And my granny on her side of the family played piano in church.
Okay.
I remember going over to her house, and she had a stand-up piano in her home, and she had the old red hymnal book.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
And I think at that point she had stopped playing because she was old when I was born. And we'd go over, and I'd say, Granny, play piano, because I love to hear it. And she'd play like the old standards, like Old Rugged Cross and all that. But then I'd say, hey, Granny, play some Jerry Lee Lewis. And she's like, no, baby, Jesus doesn't like rock and roll.
Oh, really?
I'm like, no, man, she rocked that left hand and did just kill it.
Really?
It was so cool to watch her do that.
So how old were you then?
I couldn't have been maybe 5 or 6.
Okay, so you already kind of had a...
Yeah, my mother said that I used to, she'd play the radio and put me in like a playpen while she cleaned house. She said that I would shake the playpen so violently they'd have to tighten it back up to the music. I loved it so much.
So what were your parents playing then, back in that, your parents? What were they playing musically?
Mom was, she had some bluegrass stuff, had some Motown stuff, Simon and Garfunkel. Mm-hmm. My dad was Haggard and Jones, buddy. That was his thing. I didn't know that there was such a thing as like rock and roll until I got a transistor radio for my birthday, probably 10.
Okay.
And we lived outside of Gainesville, Florida, and I tuned in Rock 105.
Oh.
And I remember the very first song I heard was Magic Man by Heart. Okay. And I was like, what is this?
I bet.
You know,
after Haggard and
yeah, but I was hooked. I was hooked hard. What made me want to start playing, however, was we had an old Betamax VHS player.
Yeah,
and
right, the big old
one with a click wheel, right? And I figured out how to tape shows.
Okay,
you know,
right.
My pro wrestling show that I liked so much I could tape, but I must have said it incorrectly because I recorded Friday night videos. On NBC.
Okay, yeah, I remember
because we didn't have cable. It was just just network stuff, right? And I pressed and play. What is this? And they rolled "Jump."
Oh, really? Okay.
By Van Halen, and it still gives me the goosebumps because I remember seeing Ed, and I was like, "That's what I want to do."
Right.
I want to play guitar. Not necessarily like that, but
right. But that's
but I mean, I had the bug hard.
That's so funny because the reason that I got playing guitar was something very similar happened to me where I saw Don Kirshner's rock concert, which is from that same era,
right? And
it was just a live video, of course, Unchained, and that's the same deal. And I was like, whoa, whatever that is.
That's what I want to do.
I knew about Kiss, but I always looked at Kiss more like superheroes, like. I couldn't really do what they do.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why I never connected the guitar until Van Halen. And I think it was their show, too.
Yeah. It just looked like they were having a good time.
And they were having a great time. That's what came across. So, so going from there, you saw the video.
Yeah, and so, my mom knew that I was, serious about wanting to learn how to play. So I had an old Sears Silvertone guitar that my brother had bought for $2 across the street at the yard sale. I traded him a handful of Matchbox cars and got this 2-string silver tone guitar. And I would, pick out little notes on there and everything, And so my mom took me to the mall there in Gainesville and bought me a Yamaha electric with a little Gorilla amplifier, a little white one.
The Gorilla.
And I would sit in my room, and I had Arlen Roth's Guitar Technique.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
And I would look at that book, and I taught myself how to play primarily.
Right.
I didn't really get into theory stuff until much later. Jeff Beasley, shout out to Jeff Beasley.
Jeff Beasley.
Kind of hit me to how to practice, what to practice, and why I was doing what I was doing.
Right.
So I went from having to memorize what to do to actually being able to improvise what to do.
Right. Yeah, I went through that same sort of phase where he came up with first of all, I had to play songs I liked. So was there a song that you learned at first to kind of get you over the hump? Where you could play a whole song or...
So the first song that I was able to play like the whole song,
right?
This is going to be a big joke, was Freebird.
Yeah.
Just the chord structure.
Right.
I met a guy when I was in college, and he was playing acoustic guitar in the student center of the college. And he was a friend of a friend, and I was just captivated because he was playing guitar, and I was like, man, I wonder how to do that. So I introduced myself to him afterwards through my buddy, and he's like, hey, I got another acoustic. I'll bring it tomorrow if you want to sit down and play with me. I'm like, great. So he showed me the chords. We played that 6-chord progression over and over and over.
Right?
Yeah, and that was my first chance to have, because I get to play a whole song,
right?
All the way through,
right.
and from I was probably 18, I guess,
yeah.
and
but once you get through that one song, it's like you get that juice from it that pushes you to the next.
Right, that this is possible. This can happen. I can do this. Right.
Because at first it's like, oh, my fingers, oh, my hands.
So daunting. That was what was tough about, idolizing Van Halen so much is, in my mind, you were talking about Kiss being superheroes. In my mind, Ed was like, oh,
Yeah.
But when I listen to, like, I've got my trinity, my holy trinity of guitar players, Stevie Ray, Billy Gibbons, and Dwayne Allman.
Right.
Those were my guys, because I could remember listening to Cheap Sunglasses and thinking, I think I can do that. Because in my head, I could visualize what he was doing.
Right.
So, that was kind of what, learning those songs from those guys really helped, push me along and get me to where I'm at.
Right. Yeah. So those three guys were your main influences.
Yeah, I actually got to meet Billy.
Talk about that a little bit, because you told me before.
That's a cool story. Yeah. So we're in Vegas in 2007 probably for the ACM Awards or CMAs. It was one of those, and so ZZ Top was in town filming the VH1. Some kind of VH1 special about them, and bands playing their songs.
Right.
And so he was there, like hanging out backstage, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, dude, it's, so whoever was handling us or leading us around, I'm like, is there any way that I could I just want to, like, maybe have a picture, I don't want to, because I was like, he's up here and I'm here,
Right.
So, she's like, well, let me see what I can do,
Right.
So she goes, okay, he's going to be in this room where you guys have got to go anyway. He said he's got maybe 5 minutes picture and everything. I'm like, cool. So he gave us a ton. His wife is from here.
Yeah,
she went to Bob Jones High School.
Yeah, I knew that.
So he knew about the band. He knew about all that. And I actually got a chance to tell him. I'm trying not to get the feels about it. I told him that I said, man, growing up as a young guy, Trace Amigos and Cheap Sunglasses and all that, I said, that's what made me want to learn how to play guitar. I said, you were so influential on me as a kid.
Right.
And he's in that voice, he's cool. He's like, man, cats like me and you, we're blessed because people love us for doing what we love to do.
Right.
And he didn't talk to me like he was, boot up on a hill talking down. He talked to me like I was there.
Right.
I went back to my hotel room and I wept.
Wow.
Because it was so cool that my hero was such a neat guy and had talked to me like I was there with him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I always remember that.
Yeah, he's been around town lately.
Yeah, I've seen that.
His picture's
He's like, where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo? Right? Tim saw him at Las Rojas.
Somebody told me that he always carries Taco Bell mild sauce with him.
Really?
Like when he goes somewhere to eat, he's always got it in his pocket. that he likes the way it tastes on his food.
Really, just puts it on there randomly.
Yeah.
That's cool. So let's go to your bands. You learn to play the guitar, and then you start bands. Obviously, everybody does.
Right.
So what's that kind of path there?
So I met some friends who, one guy sang.
This is in Gainesville.
This is I moved to Brunswick, Georgia, with my family.
Okay.
Senior year of high school.
Okay.
And then went to college there at the little community college.
Okay.
So we got the bright idea, me and the guy that sang and some other folks, that we were going to move to Huntsville, Alabama, because there was a guy here that played drums and had a place where we could stay. And, I had lost my scholarship.
Okay.
Because I was playing guitar in the student center when I should have been going to class, stay in school.
Of course.
I had a big argument with my dad over it, which I don't blame him. Now being a dad, I'm like, that was terribly stupid.
Right.
So we moved here, 19 years old.
And you're with who?
Just the guy that sang.
Okay.
So I was here maybe a year, and there was an ad in the paper for guitar player wanted. So it was just a bunch of older guys. They were probably a good 10, 12 years older than me.
Right.
And we just kind of basically picked around and rehearsed and really didn't, gig a whole lot,
Right.
So in 93, there was an ad in the paper that Jason Albert and Todd Anderson put in the paper.
Oh, really?
Guitar player wanted.
Wow.
And one of the guys that I was picking with, he was like, "Hey, did you see this ad? They're looking for a guitar player." I'm like, "Yeah, I did see that ad." So I called and got Albert's voicemail and called the other number, and it was Todd. And he was like, "Yeah, you want to come over like on a Wednesday?" I'm like, "That's great." Little did I know Todd was like just barely out of high school, and Albert was probably 19.
Just a baby.
Yeah, and so I unloaded. I had this big crate amp, and I unloaded it out of the car, and they were all looking at me through the crack in the blind like a bunch of kids. When we were a bunch of kids.
Yeah, right.
And so I went in and started playing with them, and we all kind of learned how to play together.
That's cool.
More or less.
I didn't realize y'all went that far back.
Yeah. We started playing. My son Dustin wasn't born yet at that time.
Right.
And he's 23 now.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're old, aren't we? I'm old. I'm almost 50.
Yeah, right.
I'm getting there. So you guys started your band kind of then, and what was the name of that first?
So we called it, I think we had a name like Runaway or something like that, and something corny.
And what did you do musically?
We learned like 90s country staples, like a lot of Garth Brooks.
Okay.
We wanted to just play out. That was the goal. We wanted to play out.
Right.
And, so we did like a little battle of the bands and lost horribly, because we didn't know we were supposed to bring a bunch of people with us. We were just going to go and
That's
play.
That's important. You got to have people with you.
So the first time we actually got out and played was at a club called Benchwarmer.
Right. Which is where I saw you.
And there was a band called Full Circle. And
same one?
Yeah.
Really?
And they were buddies of ours because a couple of them worked at A.B. Stevens where we would go in.
Okay.
And they let us get up and play. And it was the first time I'd ever played the nightclub.
So this is Andy and all those guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they let us get up and play a few songs.
Was Gabe with them then?
I don't think so.
Okay. So
no, Gabe's like 12. It was like way before Gabe.
Gabe was a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we did that, and would play around, and we did like mostly like events is what we tried to do because we always had in mind that we were going to make it. We were that was the goal. Right. Was to get signed and and play guitar.
And back then, and I think everybody it was one of the reasons why I think there was such a big original scene was that there was this at least a hope. That the music business, you had that opportunity. Mm-hmm. We were kind of all seemed like trying to do that at some point.
Absolutely.
Along the line between the covers and stuff, we would all have some original project.
Yeah, and we would pick up some original tunes and try to plug those in between the covers like you try to do, and go record when we could. And we put out an indie album in '96 of original stuff.
Under which name?
Under Heartland.
Okay, under Heartland.
Yeah, it's out there somewhere. It was called Hound You.
Okay,
was the name of it, and there was a cover of "Drift Away" by Dobie Gray, like way before Uncle Cracker, years before him. Right. We heard the Uncle Cracker version years later, and we were like, "What a ripoff!" But
Stop it, Uncle.
but 96 we did like an album, that we, just did ourselves, just to have one to sell at shows and stuff.
Right. Right. Cool. So from there on, what happens that Heartland? You said there was that little.
Yeah. We did a thing
where you went to the land and then back to Heartland.
Right. So we, in 97, there was a split, and Todd and Craig Anderson went on to do a band thing, and Albert and myself and Keith West did the land with a couple of drummers, and it wasn't too long after that a buddy of ours named Shane Weldon played drums, and then we were like, well, let's get Todd to come play drums.
Okay.
So Todd came in to play drums. Well, at that same time, he's in my ear like, hey, we're gonna do a rock project. Would you like to do a rock project with us? Sure, that'd be fun. So we had like Lucid Fuse. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever played any of that, but it's like we did some original rock stuff that we went up to Ardent Studios in Memphis and recorded with, I think the guy's name was Pete Matthews, that produced Evanescence demos when they were looking to get signed. Yeah. So, he helped us out with that. We probably did 4 songs that I'm proud of them. I think they still sound good. They hold up,
Right.
But, so I left the land and started playing full time with them. And then I think like Chris E. came on with the land. Jay Miller came on with the land, and some of the other folks that would later be Jason Albert Band. Right. But, so our singer left us in the rock band about the time that the land kind of stopped doing what they were doing. And this was probably 2003. And we were like, I'm sitting over there with the Andersons, and we're like, man, what are we going to do now? I said, well, let's go see if Albert wants to sing. Because I had started back doing a little acoustic stuff with him around town, and Jay Miller. Yeah. And do you want to, see if he's want to do anything? Like, nah, he won't want to sing. Well, let's go see. So we went over to the cave where Albert was hanging. I couldn't have texted him because that was before all that. I must have just called and see if he was home. Right. And so we went over there and
the phone.
Yeah, and decided that this was so in 2003, I think it was, before we all get too ancient, and everybody's families, other than mine, everybody's families, were kind of starting or hadn't started yet. Yeah. Let's make one more big push. Right. And see what happens. So at least we can say, hey, we gave it a good run. Right. We gave it a good run. So that was probably 2003. So
I kind of got this story from you over the years, but the band gets in touch with Walt Aldridge how?
So, in the way country music works, primarily, is you have writers and you have performers. Right. So we knew that what we needed to do was get some tunes, get some heavyweight tunes from somebody. So we started going to like the Bluebird Cafe type things, songwriters.
Songwriter things. Yeah.
So there was a songwriters night over in Muscle Shoals, over at the Fizz Lounge. It used to be. I don't know what it is now. It's over there in Sheffield. Yeah. And Walt Aldridge was there that night. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, while we were there, it was myself and Todd and Craig's dad, Jim, went over there. Everybody must have been busy, so he and I went over there to check out Walt and the other guys that were there. But, Walt seemed the most approachable, I guess. And he played I Loved Her First in his set that night. Okay. And of course, having a daughter.
It was an unreleased song.
Yeah, he said that it was going to go on his Greatest Holds album. Wow. Because it had been on hold with like major artists that didn't want to cut it because they didn't want to be perceived as being old enough to have a daughter getting married. Oh, wow. But we never thought about it like that, so we approached him afterwards and said, hey, Walt, looking for singles. He's like, cool, I'll send you a CD, snail mail. Right. And if you pick out some you like pick out 4, I've got access to Fame Studios. Right. You can come over and cut it. Jimmy Nutt will, help us engineer
it. Right.
And we can, I'll make you a budget. And, I can help you pitch as best I can, and you see how it goes. Yeah. Great, Yeah. So he sends us the CD snail mail. It gets there, and we're like a bunch of kids at Christmas opening it up. We put it in the boom box. And I Loved Her First, his demo of it was, I think, the first or second song on the CD. And we didn't even listen to it all the way through. Right.
I bet.
And
hello?
Called, hey, is that one? Nobody's cut that yet, Okay, we want that one. And there were I think it was 2 or 4 at that time that we cut over there. And the funny thing is, the one that you hear on the radio, is the demo.
Oh, really?
Version that we cut
at
Fame, and then at his studio in Nashville for the vocals and everything. Not some big elaborate studio or nothing like crazy. We spent less than $1,000 making that song.
Wow.
And it did all that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So the plan was to find those songs. And Walt, of course, people that don't know about Walt, he's had a lot of hits over the years. Was it Ronnie Millsap was one of his?
Yeah, he wrote "No Getting Over Me." He just recently got inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's a heavyweight songwriter, and
no doubt.
We're definitely proud to have him from the North Alabama area for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me about the transition then from this hit, how it becomes such. You record it, you get it out there, you get signed to which record label?
It was called Lofton Creek.
Okay.
It was a kind of a vanity album, vanity label. In other words, if you had 20 grand,
right,
they would bring you in and record an album with you,
right,
release it to secondary markets, and when it didn't hit, well, that's the business. Right. And they got your 20 grand, and they move on to the next guy.
Right.
We had recorded that 4-song demo, and it's, it really didn't do anything like all of 2004, most of 2005.
And this is while it's out.
Well, we didn't really, it was just us.
Right.
It was just us going around and passing it out to who we could pass it out to, and, making all the copies that we could make.
Right. And
there was a DJ in Lexington, Tennessee, little bitty town.
Yeah.
He got a copy of it and called Mike Bruschetta, that owned Lofton Creek Records. His son Scott owns Big Machine
right now
that does everybody.
Yeah, right. Swift and all that.
And so Mike called us and said, "Hey, be interested in signing you to a single deal, developmental just for the thing. And if it does well, then we'll talk about like albums or whatever." And it was like the first serious attention that we had in all those years, so we're like, yeah, we'll take it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you go ahead and do that.
Right.
Promo starts, obviously.
He starts trying to work. They had secondary market connections, and for those that don't know the radio business, the secondary market is like your WDRMs.
Right.
They're not the reporting stations. In other words, they don't, when they play your song, report to Billboard or ASCAP or whoever, to get you on a chart. Right. In other words, they're just, local markets, basically.
Right.
And so, they started, passing it out to local markets. They were like a little mom and pop operation out of a house up in, they were in Brentwood.
Right.
And so they get a phone call from one of the big markets, like in Houston, I think, or Dallas. Yeah. And they were telling him, "Hey, tell your fan club to stop calling the radio station. We're only going to play this at the most twice a day."
Right.
Like, we have no fan club. These were like legit people that were calling, requesting this song. And it just kind of caught fire. And, so they went ahead and signed us to like a 3-album deal for the full bit. And this was probably, I think we signed the first thing, the developmental, in May of 06. Mm-hmm. And I forget when it was that year that we signed like the 3 CD deal, Mm-hmm. And so September 1, we were set to start our promo tour.
Right.
Or
radio.
Tour. Right. And we had gotten with William Morris Agency. Mm-hmm. Kurt Webster was our publicist. Graham Brothers was our management company. Mm-hmm. And we were still working day gigs. We got signed in May, and we didn't leave our day jobs until September.
Right.
Weren't getting played locally.
Right.
So we had no idea what was going on nationally.
Right, because the stuff was picking up, like you said, naturally.
And we were getting like emails, from Mike saying, "Well, we just broke the top 200. We're at 150. We're at, we're like,
wow.
we didn't know what that meant. We're just like, that's great,
We're doing something right.
Right. We I'm going long here.
No.
We started, our first show was September 1st in Jacksonville, Florida, with Jake Owen at this little Concert by the Dock thing for Froggy 99. I think it's the station there in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
And my folks came down from Brunswick, and it was a good time and everything.
Right.
We flew to Lake Tahoe and played a show with Brad Paisley and Carrie Underwood.
Wow, your second show?
Yeah, second show.
That's cool.
And we were veterans of gigging.
Yeah,
so I mean, it wasn't like we'd never played for people before, but it's a little different.
Right.
And I think
that's to go from one, your second show out of the club environment to that. It's pretty.
Yeah, it was. We were ready. I mean, we were a well-oiled machine at that part. I mean, everybody had been gigging for years, and we had been waiting on this. I mean, we had our guns loaded whenever it came
we were
around.
Ready to go, right?
Yeah. So the third show that we did was in Sacramento, California, and I will never forget this until the day I die. We're late. We were late everywhere we went. Trying to get 6 guys going in the same direction is daunting. So we get there and they're like, well, we're going to have you do 3 songs acoustic, and we're like, that's great. Appreciate you, so we didn't even get to use our own guitars. I mean, we got off the thing they handed us, so we get up on stage and, kind of checking to make sure, side fills, no monitor check.
Right.
So
why have a monitor check?
Yeah, the DJ comes on and he goes, ladies and gentlemen from Huntsville, Alabama, Heartland, and the whole place goes, wow, like that. And I still get the goosebumps. I look back and it's people as far as I can see. It's like their Big Spring Jam, only like, I don't know how many people were there.
Right.
They sang every word.
Wow. And the third show?
To the ballad, because it had been on fire on the West Coast.
Oh, wow.
And, we didn't realize in our little bubble here in North Alabama what was happening nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's killer. So that must have been like 3 shows in and you realize, I mean, what do you guys think?
Something's happening, because, the speed at which all this happened, a lot of it, we look back at, some of the day sheets now about we were here, and a lot of it's a blur.
Right.
Because it all happened so fast,
right.
That we were going and we do a radio thing during the day and then a show that night and the next one and the next one, and after we got off the West,
pounding it.
Man, we played, I think in 2007, we played the second most shows in country music after Neil McCoy. I forget, we did 200-something shows that year.
Yeah, it becomes a blur. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then everything, like the whole Spinal Tap thing is real.
There was a lot of it that was real I didn't think was.
That's right.
They got really real.
Okay, so, you're now at your third show, it's exploding. You're doing promo every day, you do 200-plus shows, and then what happens after that?
So, the time came to do a second single,
right?
That happens. What's supposed to happen is when you release a single, it starts up the chart, and your record company works it, and it will spend like 52 weeks or a year-ish on the charts, going up and then peaking and then leisurely coming back down. I Loved Her First went from nothing to number 1 in 16 weeks. Bam.
Right.
And then it was gone off the chart.
Wow.
So the time, all those things are in hindsight. We should have been thinking about a follow-up single before, but it was also crazy. And the record company we were with were not terribly experienced or didn't have a really great infrastructure.
They weren't ready for that kind of hit.
Right. Not at all. Not through no effort, but it wasn't like they had to work it.
True. Yeah.
It just
happened.
Yeah, it just organically, bam, happened.
Right.
And so when trying to choose a second single, the record company thought, well, there's another ballad on the album. Mm-hmm. Let's come with the other ballad, which was a strong ballad.
Right.
It was, it was called Built to Last.
Right.
Really touching, another 6/8 ballad.
Right.
Very much in the same vein.
Right.
So they thought, well, we'll just push that one up the same road that the other one. Whereas the band was lobbying for a song called Let's Get Dirty. Mm-hmm. It was a rocker. It was very AC/DC-ish,
right.
Which was more in keeping to what our show was like.
Right.
Because, people were coming to see our show based on the 6/8 ballad.
Right.
They got to the show, and we were giving them like an 80s metal show. Right. I mean, because that's, what a lot of us really liked. We would give them like an 80s metal show with a country guy singing. Right. We were, Todd was twirling drumsticks and had double bass. I mean, if you go back and watch some of the YouTube videos, I mean, we're giving it.
Right.
And
so it was, I mean, at that time, and, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just didn't seem like that what you guys were doing was really yet there with the country. I mean, meaning that eventually that was and has been for the last decade or two the thing.
Yeah, that's how
it's a rock bass with a country singer and some fiddles.
Right. But radio was still playing "I Loved Her" first.
Right.
It was still getting when we went around to try to when the second single failed, we lawyered up to get off of that album, to get off of the record label, to try to still catch that window that was quickly passing.
Right.
By the time we lawyered up, got on a new label, recorded new material, country radio had already labeled us one hit wonder. And, we would go around, they're like, why would we play another Heartland song? We're still getting, an impression is when, somebody hears a song on the radio. It's a term that they use. And I Loved Her First was still getting like 3 million impressions a day.
Wow.
Still.
Yeah.
A year and a half, 2 years after it was released.
It's funny because, I did a little research today, and what I found out was in 2015 it was on the charts again.
it got to number 7.
Yeah,
on the Big Boy Billboard chart. And the reason it did, there was a viral video of a dad. His daughter was a sign language translator. Okay. And he couldn't sing, so what he learned how to do was he learned how to sign the words.
Oh, wow.
And signed it for her, at the reception.
Oh, man.
And the video got like 8 million hits. Wow. And it pushed the song. And it still will get in the Hot 100 like June, July during wedding season.
Yeah.
It's a wedding song.
That's an amazing thing, isn't it? And there's very few songs in history that have that kind of, they come back and forth, and it may have been a one-hit wonder, but it's one that's going to last, and that's something that you can be proud of and you're part of. And
it's so funny now that, the song was number 1 on Billboard 11 years ago, the 28th of this month, so just a few days ago. Right. And it's hard to talk to anybody that's been to a wedding in the last 10 years, and they play it.
Right.
Our son got married here a few weeks ago, and that was the father-daughter son, father-daughter dance.
It's just a perfect song. It's like, there's just a few of those songs that you'll hear at weddings, and that's, obviously one of them. And it's awesome that you guys had been able to be part of that incredible song. So when you, that all kind of falls out at the end there, and then you transition back into your lives.
Yeah.
What's that like?
So around 2008, September 2008, I could kind of see the writing on the wall, because you can only tour so long from a one-hit wonder. Sure. We went to making good chunk for a show, right, to barely breaking even, right, and it was like, it's been fun, but right, Daddy's got to pay the bills, right. There's a point, yeah, right. So called my old job that I had been at for so many years, and they let me come right back to work. And Albert and I didn't miss a beat with the club band. Right. When we got right back in it, I mean, we would play when we were home, somewhat, but when that was over, the Heartland continued for several years after that, with without me for a while, and then and there was another lineup, but we never stopped doing the club band.
Jason Albert band. After
that was, we were doing Jason Albert band before that, right? With Jason Miller.
Because I remember when I was first coming into town, that I saw you guys as the Jason Albert band early on. Yeah. And when I started Crush around the same time, right? It's 06, 07 and all that. So that's when I first became aware of you guys. Yep. So you come back home, you get back into your work, and you keep playing.
Absolutely.
And you just keep on going. So you had then your solo acoustic thing. This is what I want to talk about, because it's interesting to me that was what Myerson's Miller was. How long ago now? A couple of years?
Oh, yeah. We so I got, we came back in 08, and I did Jason Albert Band till 2012. Right. And decided that, had enough of doing that, just being in the nightclubs and everything. Just got to be a little much, and just wanted a break. I was playing in my church band, and just really enjoying that. So my son Dustin, in 2014, he was 20 years old.
Right.
Great voice.
Right,
I mean,
right,
just
right.
tremendous. Much better than his old man. Playing guitar in 20, like I didn't at 20.
Right. Right.
Because he grew up with it.
Well, sure. Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, Dad, I want to do gigs." I'm like, "Okay, that's great. I got some gear." He's like, "I'd like for you to play with me." All right,
Of course.
let's do it.
Yeah.
And bought some new PA gear, and we started. And of course, Jay Miller was my natural choice.
Sure.
He's. I'm not saying this because he's probably watching this or will watch at some point, but tremendous. For my money, one of the best drummers.
Great drummer.
Love to hear.
In fact, I used to call it Miller's Myerson a lot of times. Because you guys are so tight.
Yeah, that's true. That's
and
true.
I was always with him all the time.
Yeah, but we did. So we did that up until the first part of this year. Dustin, the wedding was coming up. He was getting married, and I was kind of ready to transition out again.
Yeah.
And we just found a nice place to. Now he's still doing a lot of solo bit.
Yeah.
And we do some one-off stuff every now and then. Just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm playing with a church group and everything, and that's fine with me. I don't miss being in the nightclubs.
Well, I was going to tell you that, and you've probably seen this trend since 2008, and Tim Cannon and I talked about it a little bit, but, the music business, this goes all to the whole music business question.
Right.
And we might as well get into it since we're going to talk about it. But you guys were doing a stripped-down acoustic thing, 3-piece, and it seems like that this wall of sound is a little much for, at least for our market. I don't know that, the kind of rock and roll that we grew up with, people say rock is dead. I mean, what do you think?
I saw a Foo Fighters show here a few months ago. Vehemently disagree.
Right. Because that's what, I was just there the other night when they played.
Yeah.
And it was big.
There's a Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, the young band.
Tremendous.
Right.
It just depends on where you look. Now, for the scene here, and I think, I read an article recently where I think it's a lot of America is seeing this. People don't, go to bars to meet people. They meet each other online.
Right.
They don't go to bars to listen to music.
Right.
They listen to music through little things.
Or through the live.
on their phones.
Right.
They go to socialize.
Right.
And they don't want to have to scream over a band, and they don't want to be in cigarette smoke.
Right.
So the acoustic. Now we were doing 2 acoustics and drums.
Right.
Back in '97.
Okay.
So it's
been something that you've done all along.
Yeah. I mean, and people were like, "Well, how do you play without a bass player?" Hide and watch.
Well, too, if you think about, you go back to MTV when they did Unplugged. That was sort of like, something like what we did recently. Once we were asked to do this, is do a full band, but do an acoustic, which was fun,
right?
And it worked out fine.
Yeah.
But I just noticed the trend is that, like you said, because of the technologies and the way people go about things now, it's a little different. Because when we went into clubs, we went for the bands. We went, and we went, we went to that just to get our brains blown out because it was fun.
The way people consume music is what has changed.
Right.
The way people consume, the way they buy it, is really different these days. That's why you don't see a lot of albums. Big record companies are going away.
Right.
It's all online.
So why do you think vinyl came back? A little bit anyway.
I think that there's been a resurgence in vinyl because for me,
this is nostalgia is what you're going to tell me.
Yeah, it is. I think it's that too. And I think that the sound quality is different.
Right.
For me, anyway, my lovely little wife bought me a vinyl player. I think it was year before last for my birthday. And, the kids and everything, they're like, "This is great. We know what to get you now. We just get you some vinyl."
Right.
And I don't know how to describe it other than the depth. The depth of it is different.
The depth is different.
I think
people argue with you about that, but when you put it in front of you and you listen to it, there's something. I've heard remastered. I actually got Shania Twain's biggest album, Come On Over, and I put it on, on vinyl, and I swore I could hear things I'd never heard.
It's true.
And a bottom end that I'd never really experienced from that album.
Yeah, to me, what it does is
it was never released.
It gives depth to the instruments, because to me, when I'm listening to it, especially if I have headphones on, I can hear the depth of the drums. I can hear the positioning of the instruments. To me, digital, and I'll argue with people about this all the time, it has a tinny, hissy kind of
flatness to it.
Right.
Like, the compression and all that.
Right. It loses some of the life.
Yeah.
It loses some of the life.
And some of that is the volume war thing, and squashing it down to the
compress everything.
Dynamic ranges.
Yeah.
And before we didn't really have that so much, you know. And some people, and I think what's happened with vinyl and some of these kids, I know that they have to be careful when they cut it and how they cut it because of the problems that bass can cause, but probably the mastering has been different on the back end of these albums. Some of these people probably said, finally, we can just do what we want with this because it's a different thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I found too that the remastered vinyl, the reissued now, is not as good a quality as the old stuff, the original pressing.
Right.
There's somebody gave me a Hotel California.
It's a new one.
It was an old one, you know, versus like a new album that I got.
Right.
And I don't know if it was because of the way it was made, but it, just didn't track as well.
Right. And I found that in certain instances, depending on the process and how well it was done, because I bought some albums and they skipped right out of the box, and I was like, wow. And then I bought some that were great, that 180 stuff that was really nice. And so it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. Let's talk about a couple things. I have really a couple questions at the end I always ask. One was the one about the music business. One, just tell me what music means to you in one word, if you can. I mean, one word that would describe it for you. I know that's a tough one. Everybody kind of chokes on that one a little bit.
No, it's pretty easy for me.
For you.
Happiness.
Right.
I look forward to music. To me, when I was a kid, I wasn't the most outgoing kid.
Right.
When I discovered music, I was very bookish.
Right.
Very shy,
introverted.
But it gave me an identity.
Yeah.
It really did, and especially after I got to where I was, more proficient with it, it kind of gave me a little bounce in my step. You know what I mean? Because I knew that I had that, and to me, the music that is mine, it belongs to me.
Right.
It's something that God forbid something happens to my hands, but even the way I listen to it, the way I hear it,
right,
is always going to be mine. When I don't know about you, but when I hear music, I see shapes in my mind, and I can, it's the way, if I have to learn something just by listening to it, I can visualize what it's doing. And to me, to be able to consume music that way is so valuable to me. Right,
because we've learned how to do that over time.
Yeah, and
it's something of a somewhat acquired skill to be able to not only play it and visualize it and feel it hear it a certain way. Like you said, with the depth of the instruments, maybe everybody hasn't really been educated to do what we do, because we have to do it certain ways in order to learn it. So we get a depth that we have learned to appreciate things.
Yeah, one of the greatest, Dustin, one of the things that I think was the biggest service that I ever did for him was buying him a little iPod shuffle and loading it up with Motown,
right,
old country, 80s metal, hip hop,
right,
and stuff that I valued musically. Yeah. And so he grew up with that. So now he has that gift.
Right.
Because I tell you what, there's something when Back in Black comes on and it hits that cymbal thing,
right,
when it all kicks off, if that doesn't make your spine move, I don't know about you. If that doesn't make your head bob, and I love that about music. I love that. How it just makes me feel so happy when the Humpty Dance comes on,
right.
And it starts out, and I'm hearing all the samples and and how they've mixed it and everything,
right.
It just makes me happy,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's constant,
right?
It's always the same whenever you play it, God forbid whatever medium you're playing it back from fails, but music is consistent to me. When my guitar's in tune and I hit that G chord, it always will be one.
Right.
From here in time immemorial, it'll always be that. And from my OCD and stuff that I deal with. That was very good for me. That consistency.
Oh yeah.
Really dug that about it.
Yeah, it's something like when you get on stage and everything that you're worried about, kind of, you just lock in what you're doing.
Yeah, it goes away.
It's the music, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things you were talking about your son, as far as young people come up, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was to try to take people like yourself who have 10,000 or 20,000 hours of experience in this business. What would you tell somebody young? What have you told your son? What other lessons have you learned that you could just kind of like, if you had a bullet point list of things, just something, a few things?
One would be to protect your hearing.
Oh yeah.
I wish. Now I was
True,
told
though.
that. I was told that, but I told him, protect your hearing, because you can't get it back once it's gone.
Right.
And I played a lot of loud gigs, and my left ear, there's a big scoop where the mids used to be.
Right.
And my wife has to sit on the right side of me when we walk or when we go somewhere, so I can hear her.
Right. Sure.
And protect your hearing.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah.
Have a broad palette. Don't just say, "Oh, well, I don't like that kind of music. That kind of music's no good."
Right.
There is something valuable and about every kind of music.
Sure.
I still to this day try to. It's a little tougher now that I'm older to try to get into dubstep and some of that other club stuff. I still try to listen to it, and I still try to discover new music, because I think that by not doing that, you limit yourself. You might miss out on something. I love it all, from even current hip hop stuff, all the way to classic country, traditional bluegrass, southern gospel, and everything in between. Consume as much as you can. Give yourself a broad palette to pull from if you want to be a musician. Because if you've got one little swath that you're pulling from, you might miss out on Etta James. You might miss out on Grandmaster Flash.
Right.
Who invented breakbeat mixing.
Right.
You might miss out on that, that might give you inspiration to create the next great type of music.
Right. You never know, right?
Yeah.
Anything else on that? As far as gigging or...
play with people that are better than you.
Yeah, I think that's so common.
Yeah.
Everybody says.
Play with people that are going to make you step your game up.
Right.
I've been privileged to get to play. I'm rotten. I'm spoiled. Getting to play with some of the very best musicians. I mentioned Jason Miller. Chopper Wilson is another one
awesome.
who just makes you raise your game up. I love going to see Tim Cannon. Vocally, he is just he's vocally he is so unique.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, go see live music. Go see other people play, and don't be critical. I hate. Hate's a strong word. I really dislike when somebody goes to see somebody else play and they criticize them in their mind. They're playing armchair quarterback in their mind. Well, God, he missed that chord, man, he did that run wrong. Well, that vocal note was flat. No.
Right.
Encourage everybody.
Sure.
Be positive for everybody, because there was a time we've all hit bad notes. We've all sang bad notes. We've all had bad gigs. Respect the people that are out there giving an effort to try to make that music, and encourage them. Learn from them.
Right.
If they ask you for it, pass on something to them.
Right.
Networking with other musicians is how we get to be better players
and better people.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think one of the things that we don't talk about is how the relationships that we built over the years are so connected to what we do. Damon Johnson was on here, and he said that everything he got from music, his family, his friends, everything, because his whole life was wrapped up in this great thing that we get to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Of course, I have music that I share with my son, which is an incredible gift. To get to do that with him. It's one of the great joys of my life is to get to play music with him and appreciate it and listen to it with him. I met my wife at one of your gigs.
Right.
So without that music, I wouldn't have her.
Right. I met my wife at a gig.
Yeah. All my dear lifelong friends that I have now, are, I would have to agree with Damon that, good many of my friends, I don't know that I have friends that don't know that I play or haven't seen me play or had something to do with the musical aspect of my personality. Right.
It's, when you're like us, it permeates you forever. And your bonds between Albert or Miller, or even if you're not together, are always there forever.
Yeah,
it's like a brotherhood for real that never ever goes away.
Being in a band with somebody is the closest relationship you can have with them without being married.
Yeah.
It is. You fight. You love. You share experiences. And I had a chance to get together with 4 of us from Heartland and do a Red Fest. Todd Stovall's thing he puts on.
Yeah.
And we got together for the first rehearsal. And I want you to know that it was like we had never stopped playing together.
Right.
The grins in the room. I mean, you drop that first beat, and it was like we had just stepped off the bus again. It's just magic.
It is. It's magical. That's what I think about music. So one more question. We only talked about one of your unique experiences, which was one of your great community with Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
Is there something else that you would want to share about that you can think of when you were on this? Was it CMT Awards?
We did the
CMA.
It was the CMA Awards.
CMA.
We did the ACM Awards.
ACM Awards.
There was so much cool stuff. I mean, we got to do the Opry. We got to play at the old Ryman Auditorium for one of them.
Right.
We played the Jerry Lewis Telethon.
Wow.
One of the final times that they did that.
So many cool things.
It's so hard to nail one of them down.
That Billy Gibbons one.
That's my go-to story.
Life changing.
Yeah, that's one of my go-to stories.
I told Jim, I said, dude, if I was at Los Trojas and he walked by me, I'd chase him down. He wouldn't be walking out the door, brother.
You try to be cool, but sometimes it's tough.
I was like, this is my only chance. I'm going after him.
So at the ACM Awards, we got to be like a pre-presenter before they actually roll live on TV.
Right.
And we presented like Radio Personality of the Year or something like that. And we got done, and you walk backstage and your eyes are still from the lights. And we walk head up into John Bon Jovi and Richie.
Oh, really?
And Sheryl Crow. And they're backstage talking. And I couldn't get over how short John was.
Yeah.
He's like 5'4". I mean, he's a little bitty guy, but I was still standing there like, because I kind of looked around like, what do I say to John Bon Jovi?
Hey, yeah.
And Charlie Crawford was with us. He was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And like struck up a conversation, and I'm like, So.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's wild when you run face to face with somebody that, like you in your case, was the reason you started playing music. It's such a weird but cool thing that happens.
Yeah, I've not met Ed yet.
Well, it was pretty cool.
I'm not sure I want.
It was a little freaky.
I'm afraid he might be a toolbox, and then I hate myself forever from him.
He was great. He was great when I met him. But last year, I think it was at NAMM last year, I learned my first song, which was Paranoid, right? Mm-hmm. And I learned it from the Speak of the Devil album from Brad Gillis. Mm-hmm. And he was at the NAMM show last year, and he had the guitar, the famous red guitar, the Strat that he played on the tours.
Yeah.
And he had it with him because they were doing a replica of it, and I got to sit there with Brad Gillis.
Oh wow!
And I told him that I had learned Paranoid from him off the record with that guitar. It was one of those situations.
Right.
Like here I am with one of the dudes that actually taught me my first song before my guitar teacher taught me anything. It was amazing. Well, man, I appreciate you coming over and being on the show.
Absolutely, thanks.
It's been a long time together, and I'm glad to still have you as a friend and have you guys around, and of course your lovely wife, who I love and I always have loved.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming out, and
I appreciate it.
Everybody online, hope you enjoy this. Go to the YouTube channel, which is Final Resonance TV, and subscribe and like, and check out all the other videos that are up there. Tim Cannon, Damon Johnson, a whole bunch of great people. And we're going to keep on doing this and keep on having great people over and talk music.
Awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy, man. Thank you.